What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Trapfish Aquatics. Today I want to talk about a topic that is widely discussed among fish enthusiasts and aquarist hobbyists and things like that, and that would be lighting. And what I want to talk to you guys about is that you don't need to spend a lot of money to be able to grow plants and make your tanks look good. And where I want to start with that is I want to start with the lighting spectrum. So you can grow plants anywhere from 3200 Kelvin to 10,000 Kelvin. A lot of people argue that you need lights that are specifically for plants and are at 6500 Kelvin and that's it. You can't go below or above because that is what you need. That's not necessarily true. So what I want to do is I want to start down at 3200 Kelvin and work our way up and do a little bit of talking and explaining about the different lighting spectrums and what they mean. So I'm going to start with 3200 Kelvin. Now 3200 Kelvin is a very warm light. It is more of a yellowish orange color, and I actually have a 3200 Kelvin light back here on this tank. Now I know it looks very blue, but that is because I have black gravel and the wall next to it is green, and it's getting a lot of natural daylight from this here. But when it's nighttime, this tank looks very orange. But that has 3200 Kelvin bulbs in it. Now 3200 Kelvin is what you would usually get out of a fluorescent bulb, which that has. Now, back in the 80s, a lot of fish hobbyists used fluorescent bulbs because that's all they had. And they started growing live plants and experimenting with them, and they grew their plants perfectly fine using fluorescent tube bulbs. Now they were growing them with T12s, which is a very old-fashioned bulb. Now, if you aren't familiar with what a fluorescent bulb is, those are the round bulbs. They're about this big around, and they could be 18, 24, 36, 48 inches long, and they've got two metal pins on the end that you put into a fixture and turn. They lock in, and then you can turn the light on. And the denomination of T12, 8, and 5 is the actual overall diameter of the bulb. So a T12 bulb is 1.2 inches in diameter, a T8 is 0.8 inches, and a T5 is 0.5 inches. Now, throughout the years, as technology advanced, the advancement of those bulbs changed. So they went, originally back in the 80s, they went from T12 bulbs, and technology advanced and they came out with T8 bulbs, which were smaller in diameter and put out more light, and plants grew fine under those. And then as technology advanced again, they came out with T5 bulbs and T5 high output bulbs. Now these bulbs, you can get a lot more of them because they're only a ½ inch in diameter into a fixture than you could with a T8 or a T12. And they put out more light, there were more color spectrums available. So T5s are still used today and grow plants very, very well. The only downside is you have to replace the bulbs every 6 months to a year because they do lose their power and they do have to be replaced. But your tank can look very good and you can grow very good plants using T5 bulbs. The fixtures are generally very large and house anywhere from 6 to 8 bulbs for a tank like a 75 or 4 to 6 bulbs for a tank like a 55. But they will grow plants phenomenally. And with the T5s, you can get them anywhere up to like 6,000 Kelvin, all the way down to 3200. And you can basically pick whatever color you want. They've got bulbs that are specifically grow lights. They've got daylight bulbs. They've got bulbs for saltwater tanks. Anything you want, and it will grow plants. But nowadays, with technology advancing, we have switched over to mainly LEDs in the aquarium hobby. 1, they're more reliable. 2, they don't have to be replaced. And 3, they cost a little bit more, but the length that you get of the life of that LED strip light or LED bar or whatever way surpasses the life of the fluorescent bulbs. So what I want to talk about now is 5,000 Kelvin. So 5,000 Kelvin would be your natural daylight. If you go outside and the sun is shining, that spectrum of light is 5,000 Kelvin. And as we all know, that light will grow everything. Because if it didn't grow everything, it wouldn't exist. So anything that you can put outside and will grow, grows in 5,000 Kelvin. Now if you get cloudy days and stuff like that, that'll adjust the spectrum up and down a little bit, but on a clear sky, sunny day, you're looking at 5,000 Kelvin. So most aquarists recommend 6,500 Kelvin, which they claim grows less algae, is better for plants, so on and so forth. They're real sticklers for that 6,500 Kelvin. And I don't necessarily find that to be true. I have medium high-end Phoenix 24/7 Planet Plus lights out of my 125, and I've got 3,200 Kelvin lights here, I've got 5,000 Kelvin lights here, and I've got 10,000 Kelvin lights here and here. And they all grow algae the same. There's no real difference. I have a high-fin Plico that's currently in the 75-gallon tank right here behind me, and he moves from tank to tank just doing algae maintenance. And keeps him happy, keeps me happy. But all those spectrums of light grow algae because as soon as you put live plants into a tank, you have to add fertilizers and things like that. Even if you put in plant-specific substrates, they're going to leach a little bit of that nutrients and you're going to get algae. So it's not necessarily the lighting that is producing the algae, it's more the amount of nutrients in your water available for the algae to grow. So algae is a plant, there's nutrients in the water, it absorbs the nutrients and grows. If you have a higher powered light, they're going to get more light, it might grow a little bit faster than it would in the 3,200, but it's still going to grow. So I'm not necessarily a stickler for the 6,500 Kelvin lights. I would rather invest my money somewhere that I know is going to grow plants and then worry about algae as a secondary factor. So after 6,500 Kelvin, I want to talk about 10,000 Kelvin, which is a very blue light. It's almost like the actinic lighting that you use in a saltwater tank, and that would be like this light here and this light down here. Now I don't know if you can see the difference. I don't know if you can see it on camera, how this light is a little bluer and this one is much whiter. That is the color spectrum between 5,000 Kelvin and 10,000 Kelvin. It is much bluer. Now, a lot of the cheaper, when I say cheaper, LED lights such as Aquaneat and Night Crew use 10,000 Kelvin as their lighting spectrum. Just because you can use it either on saltwater tanks, like if people are first getting into saltwater and they're setting up a small aquarium, they can put one of these lights on there and it will do fine. Or you can set up a tropical planted tank and put it on there and it will do fine. And that means they don't have to make all kinds of different lights, and then they can just have a universal kind of lighting, and they only have to produce one light and sell it, and that's how they make their money. Now that's my opinion. Don't know if it's 100% true, but that's what I believe. So I have it back here on this 20-gallon high, and it grows plants perfectly fine. I have an Acris that I put in there, and once a week I have to trim it because it outgrows the overall height of the tank and starts arching up over the top towards the front. It grows plants perfectly fine. Now, so does this tank, but we'll get to that in a minute. So the 10,000 Kelvin lights do perfectly fine, and they are cheaper. Now I say cheaper, I believe this tank here and this tank here have the same lighting, and each one of those lights was about $25 to $30. Now, compared that to the fluorescent lights that if you bought a tank in the past 10 years, probably came with that lighting. If you have to replace the LED tube, that tube was maybe $5. Now, over the course of say 5 years, if you replace it every year, that would be the total cost of this light here. But after that, that light technically would have gotten more expensive, like what's on this one. This one has the fluorescent tubes, but they were upgraded to LEDs for longer life. So generally out of LEDs you get 50,000 hours, which is significantly longer than 5 years if you're only running your lights 8 hours a day. So that's why I chose to go with mostly LED lights. Now, I really haven't seen any lights that are higher than 10,000 Kelvin being used on tropical aquariums or anything like that. My wife just scared the ever-living hell out of me. But I'm trying to think of where I was. I lost track. Oh yeah, anything over 10,000 Kelvin I haven't really seen used on Planet aquariums or anything like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you around and show you different lights that I have, how well they work on plants, and how much they cost versus how well they grow those plants. So we'll go ahead and take a quick walk around right now, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so I'm out in my living room. Now I'm not going to have the camera facing me so I can show you guys what I'm talking about and talk about the lights. But this is my 125 gallon tank. I have two Phoenix 24/7 Planet Plus lights on top of this. They are 36 inches long. And these lights cost about $120 a piece. Now you can see they grow plants very well. I actually took a bunch of jungle val out of this tank and planted it in all my other tanks, if you guys watch my other videos. And this one jungle val over here is propagating like crazy. It's gone about that far in about a week. But I've got Amazon swords, Anubias, Anacris, jungle val, all kinds of stuff in here. And they grow these plants very well. And up here you can see they've got the remotes for color programming and things like that. They got the 24-hour cycle. I usually just run it on max, and then I have them hooked up to a timer. And they grow these plants very well. Everything is, you know, thriving. But these lights are very expensive, relatively speaking. It's not like a current USA light where you're paying $300-400 for a light or anything like that. But this is a light that I would say 20% of the fish community would purchase. The other 10% would be the people buying the current lights and the super high-end lighting. But that's pretty much all I have to say about these. They work very well. So moving on into the fish room, I'll come in here, I'll go over here because I talked about these tanks a lot. This tank down here, this 20 gallon, has a Aquaneat light. There it is right there, Aquaneat. This light cost about $25 to $30. It grows plants very well. As you can see on the skull there, it grows algae too. But it grows plants well. And for $25, $30, I'm happy with the amount of light that it puts out and how capable it is of growing these plants. You can see on the Anacris here, it's not really stretching real far to try and get to lighting, so it's putting out plenty of light to grow these plants. And everything in this tank is thriving. Again, that light was $30. Now, coming up to this 20 gallon, this 20 gallon tank I planted about 1 week ago, and the Anacris plants in here were no taller than this filter output. So they've grown about 6 inches in about a week, so about an inch a day, which I feel is pretty good. Now, the lighting that I have on this tank was not originally meant for aquarium use. The light that I have on this tank is from Walmart. It is a Hypertech under cabinet light, rated at 5,000 Kelvin. And as you can see, it grows plants very well. Now, I do have this little black hood on here because the way the light is designed, let me turn it off. It is rounded on the end. See if you and show you. So when you have this light laying on top, you do get a lot of light bleed. I have to figure out a way to stop that, but for right now I just have that lid sitting there to block it from my view. Another thing I like about this light is that little cap there. There's a little cord that comes with this. You can run multiple of these off of one plug. So you plug this into the wall, and then there's a little wire that you hook from this light to the next light, and then that's that. You can run as many as you want. Now, what I really like about this light is the price point. The price point on this light specifically, I believe, was $9.88. And it's LED at 5,000 Kelvin lighting spectrum. So you can see 5,000 Kelvin, 10,000 Kelvin. That one's much bluer. This one's much whiter. So $10, $30. I would say they grow plants about the same. You can see that the Anacharis here is not really stretching to reach up for light, so it's not struggling for light at all, and is overall in good health. So we'll move over to this tank here. This is a 55-gallon tank, and this was the original tank that I was doing testing of cheap lighting on aquarium plants. I've got some jungle val, some Amazon swords, and some Anacharis in here. Now, the jungle val has been growing well, although these goldfish particularly have been munching on the leaves, but aside from that, it's been growing and propagating. As you can see down here, this plant has shot off, camera hog you, this plant has shot off runners to here, 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 and it's propagating well, which means it's overall in good health. The Anacharis is growing well. Even though they are munching the ends off the leaves, it's growing well. Same thing with the Amazon swords. They are growing well, but they are being eaten because these guys are plant hounds. They're the only goldfish of the fancy variety I've had that have eaten plants the way they do. However, this light, if I lift it up here, kind of looks like a fluorescent tube, right? But these are LED replacements. So you can go to Walmart, and I believe those are 5,000 Kelvin, and for those lights, they're $8 a piece. So a little bit more than the fluorescent tubes at $5, but they're going to last a lot longer. They put out more light, and they grow plants. These plants have been in here for probably a month, and have grown well. Now, this tank down here is the 4-foot fluorescent tube. I haven't put any live plants in here since I've put the goldfish in here, because I don't want to lose any more plants to these guys. I also don't have enough substrate in here currently, because I took a bunch out when I planted this tank, and the substrate's not deep enough to grow plants. However, at 3200 Kelvin, this is capable of growing plants. It would probably grow these Anacharis perfectly fine, because if you look at it, you can see the difference in lighting between the LEDs and the fluorescents. How this one, the gravel right here, you can see it much more pronounced than you can down in this tank down here. But this 3200 Kelvin is still capable of growing plants. However, if I wanted to grow more plants, I would add more of these fluorescent lights. So moving forward, this 29-gallon tank here, I do have some plants in here. These plants, where are we? This plant here, and these here are all fake plants. But I do have some Java fern here, some Anacharis here, and a little Java fern up here. This tank is suffering from blackbeard algae. It did get contaminated and it's growing like mad, so I have to treat it to get rid of that. But that is a 10,000 Kelvin light, and it was growing those plants perfectly fine. Down here is my 75-gallon tank. This has the same lighting as that 55-gallon tank up there. It's the fluorescent tube replacements. I haven't put any live plants in here yet, but I am fully confident that it is capable of growing them. I do not have a light on this tank because that is the axolotl, and they don't have eyelids, so I don't want to blind him. This 10-gallon tank here has a night crew light on it. That light was only about $15, and it grows lots of algae. It grew a lot of my Anacris in my guppy fry tank, and it grew this Java moss ball, which was very small, up to a large ball very quickly. Since then it has become overrun with snails, and I don't have any fish in here at the moment except for one guppy right there, because she was acting funny, so I pulled her out and I set her in there, and I'm going to keep an eye on her, and she may be going through quarantine shortly. My 5-gallon tanks up here don't have any lighting except for the ambient room lighting. And this 55 down here is my guppy tank, and the light on this is a shop light from Walmart. This is a Hypertech LED shop light. It's 4 feet long, and it's 3200 lumens. Now, Walmart did have two kinds. They've got 3200 lumen and 5000 lumen, and I figured I would get the 3200, and if it wasn't bright enough, I would return it and get the 5. But I feel that this 3200 is more than bright enough to grow plants. The jungle val is doing very well. These plants are 3 to 4 feet long and still growing. And the Anacris that I planted in here has grown about a foot in a week. So I would say that these lights are more than capable. Now, the thing that might surprise you is this shop light only costs $16. Now, at $16, I am pleasantly surprised at how well it is doing growing all of these lights, or all of these plants. And I would say that it's growing these plants just as well as my Phoenix 24/7 lights out there. Now, a Phoenix 24/7 light for this tank would cost about $150, whereas this light costs $16, and it grows it just as well. This is the 5000 Kelvin spectrum. And overall, I am very happy with the performance of this light. So, all in all of these lights are capable of growing plants. And in my personal opinion, it all depends on how much money you want to spend and what kind of gimmicky items that you are interested in. So, long story short, light is light. Plants require light, so it doesn't necessarily matter what kind of light you get, it will grow plants. Alright guys, so that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. I know it was a long one. It was about 24 minutes. Thank you for sitting through and watching it. Let me know if you learned something from this. Like the video, subscribe, that's always good. And share it with your friends. Share it on groups. And leave a comment down below. Let's have a conversation. Let me know what you think. And until then, I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.